Inside the house, when Oscar saw a woman doing the dishes, he couldn't help himself. He went up to her and kissed her. Before the woman could completely give in to him, she heard her husband's voice from outside. She immediately rushed out. At that very moment, her husband arrived, but he hadn't seen what was going on between the two. The story begins a few days earlier. Inside a train, two boys are sitting. One of them is named Oscar, and the other is Tom. Oscar is heading home with his friend to spend the holidays. While they're traveling, a beautiful girl named Emma walks up and sits near Oscar. She wants to talk to him and even go on a date, but Oscar isn't interested in her at all. On the other hand, his friend Tom thinks differently. He wants to talk to Emma. However, Emma only wants to talk to Oscar. When Oscar doesn't show any interest, Emma walks away. Tom gets mad at him. He says, "Emma wanted to talk to you. She's crazy about you. And you didn't even say a word to her." Oscar tries to explain, "This is beyond your understanding. All this is just madness. There's no such thing as love." The truth is, Oscar has a thing for older women. He studies at a boarding school where many girls are interested in him, but he never gives any of them attention. Instead, Oscar is in love with a woman. After getting off the train, they take a taxi and head home. Each goes their separate way. When Oscar reaches home, his dad is overjoyed to see him. Once he's home, Oscar learns that his dad has remarried. His mom had passed away a few years ago, and his father has now married a woman named Eve. Oscar's father is a university professor, and Eve is a doctor. Even though Oscar tries to act like everything is fine, he doesn't really feel that way deep down. That night, Oscar's father throws a party to celebrate his son's return. Many guests arrive. His dad introduces him to a girl around his age. She's pretty, but Oscar has no interest in her at all. He only keeps looking at his stepmother, Eve. The woman Oscar was telling his friend about, the one he's in love with, is none other than Eve. Eve is smart, mature, and independent. After Oscar's mom passed away and his dad married Eve, she started taking care of Oscar. It was during that time that Oscar fell in love with her. Then he left for boarding school, but he never really forgot her. What Oscar wants is socially and morally wrong, but he listens to his heart. He sees beauty in everything Eve does, her walk, the way she talks, her intelligence. He views her as the ideal woman, like someone straight out of a novel. But Eve has no idea how Oscar feels. Oscar tries to talk openly to Eve, but she doesn't pick up on any of his hints. She remains completely unaware of what he's trying to say. At the party, Oscar meets Eve's best friend. Her name is Diane. She's a modern, free-spirited woman who believes in living life on her own terms. She works as a massage therapist. She tells Oscar, "If you ever want a massage, just let me know." From her tone and body language, it's clear she's starting to like Oscar. After the party ended, Oscar's father asked him to drop off a girl at her house, the same girl Oscar had shown no interest in. Although she was beautiful, Oscar's attention was on Eve. He didn't want to go with the girl, but still, he went outside with her to catch a cab. While on the way, they talked. The girl told Oscar that she wanted to go on a date with him, but Oscar replied, "I'm busy with work right now, so I can't go on a date." Hearing this, the girl felt hurt, but Oscar only wanted to get rid of her. He put her in a cab and sent her home. Oscar hadn't been able to express his feelings to Eve, which made him really upset. To drown his sorrow, he went to a bar to drink. There, he ran into his uncle, a man known for his romantic nature. Jokingly, his uncle told him to go romance a girl, but instead, Oscar borrowed some money from him. He used that money to indulge himself and experience some momentary pleasure. Even though he felt exhausted afterward, he kept drinking heavily. When Oscar left the bar, he was stumbling around, completely drunk. At that moment, Diane appeared. Seeing the condition he was in, Diane realized that if he went home like that, his father would be furious. So she decided to take him to her apartment. Oscar was exhausted. Diane told him to lie down on the bed. He did. She said, "You need a massage," and asked him to take off his clothes. Oscar, tempted by the situation, agreed and undressed. As Diane started massaging him, she found herself attracted to him. Oscar, under the influence, started losing control as well. While giving him a massage, Diane came closer. Oscar suddenly sat up, still drunk and now cold without clothes. Diane offered him some coffee, which helped him feel better. But while drinking, he spilled some on himself. Diane leaned in to clean it, and seeing Oscar shirtless, she couldn't resist. The two became very close. Diane gave Oscar a massage that made him feel good in more ways than one. The next morning, when Oscar woke up, he found Diane sleeping beside him. He got worried. What if Diane's husband showed up? Without waking her, he quietly got dressed and tried to sneak out. But as he stepped out of her room, he saw Diane's husband in the other room. Oscar was terrified, but Diane's husband assumed that Oscar had just come for a massage. massage. Actually, Oscar was considered a good boy by the people around him. Just as he was about to leave, Diane came in and acted like Oscar had genuinely only come for a massage. Later, when Oscar returned home, his father asked him, "Where were you last night?" Oscar lied, saying he was with a girl from his boarding school. Hearing this, his father apologized to him, saying he felt guilty for not being able to spend more time with his son. Oscar soon finds out that Eve has already left for work. He can no longer hide his feelings for her and starts looking for an opportunity to talk to her and confess his love. To surprise her, he decides to bring her lunch so they can spend some time alone. Oscar starts packing lunch for Eve, and seeing this, his father becomes very happy. Oscar's father is a simple man, unaware of his son's true feelings. Oscar then heads to Eve's clinic with the lunch. When he gets there, he sees Eve standing with a man who is playing the guitar for her. Oscar freezes in place and drifts into a daydream. He imagines himself playing the guitar in front of Eve and making her happy. This reveals just how deeply Oscar is falling for her. Snapping out of it, Oscar enters the clinic where Eve is working. She is happy to see him and thinks to herself how sweet Oscar is. Eve is a hardworking doctor, and Oscar starts asking her questions about the heart. He asks, why is the heart considered the symbol of love? They continue chatting like this. Eve finds Oscar's questions endearing and starts to think that he's a really good kid. But soon, Eve senses that something is off. Oscar starts asking questions about reproduction. Before he can say anything else, Eve gets a call from Diane. After the call, Eve tells Oscar, "Tonight, your dad, you, and I are going out for dinner, and Diane is coming with us too." Hearing this, Oscar panics. He's afraid Diane might tell Eve that the two of them spent the night together. To prevent this, Oscar rushes to Diane's house to talk to her, but she's not there. Instead, her husband sees Oscar again and becomes suspicious. He asks, "Son, what brings you here so early?" Oscar nervously covers up, saying he wants another massage from Diane because he's been feeling really stressed lately. Her husband tells Oscar that Diane has gone out with some friends to a restaurant. Hearing that, Oscar immediately rushes to the restaurant without thinking. There, he finds Diane sitting with her friends, having coffee. Oscar tries to speak to Diane privately and tells her he's a client and needs to talk alone. But her friends invite him to sit with them and start chatting. After talking to Oscar, Diane's friends are quite impressed with him and even start flirting with him. A little while later, all of Diane's friends leave. Then Oscar says to Diane, "Forget whatever happened between us and don't tell anyone about it, especially not Eve." Diane replies, "Don't worry, no one will ever know what happened between us." She actually wants to keep this relationship going because she's starting to feel that Oscar has a certain depth she hasn't seen in any of her past relationships. She feels a growing emotional connection with Oscar and wants him to spend more time with her. But Oscar refuses and walks away. Now, Oscar finds himself trapped in a deep mental conflict. He wants to get away from Diane and confess his feelings to Eve. He goes to his best friend's house and tells him the truth that the woman he truly loves is Eve. Hearing this, his friend is shocked. Oscar also admits that he had slept with Diane while he was drunk, but now he wants to get rid of her. Hearing all this, his friend tells him that what he did was wrong and that he should forget about Eve. But Oscar doesn't listen. He sees Eve as an ideal woman, someone he wants to be with forever. That night, Oscar gets dressed up for a family dinner at a fancy restaurant. Diane is joining them too, not by choice, but because she had told Oscar's father that Oscar took a massage from her but never paid for it. So now they were forced to take Diane with them to dinner. At the table, everyone starts off with drinks, but Diane drinks way too much and begins flirting with Oscar in French. Oscar is already nervous and terrified that his secret might come out, but Diane keeps speaking in French, a language neither Eve nor her husband understands, so they have no idea what she's saying. Oscar tries to stop Diane from saying such things and from drinking more, but she doesn't listen. He's deeply scared that Diane might spill the truth about them sleeping together, so he tries to get her to calm down. Oscar's behavior starts to seem strange to both his father and Eve. When Diane goes to the restroom, Oscar follows her. He stops her and says, "What you're doing is wrong," but Diane starts kissing him. Just then, Oscar's father sees them. When they both return to the table, his father asks, "Are you two hiding something from us?" Diane says, "We're in love." Oscar's father and Eve are stunned and tell them that this relationship is wrong. There's a huge age gap between you two. This should have never happened. At night, when Oscar's father is busy with work, Eve comes to him and tries to get close. But he says, "I have work to do right now," so Eve quietly walks away. Oscar watches all of this from a distance, hidden. The next day, Eve and Diane meet. Eve tries to talk some sense into her, saying, "You shouldn't have gotten involved with Oscar. There's a huge age difference between the two of you. This is wrong." But Diane replies, "I found Oscar attractive. The way he behaves, the way he talks, I really like it." She adds, "If another woman were in my place, she would have done the same." Maybe even you would have. Hearing this, Eve starts thinking that Diane has truly lost her mind. Later, Eve and Oscar play tennis. But during the game, Oscar gets hit on the head with a ball, so they head back home. That's when Eve sits Oscar down and asks, "Why did you get involved with Diane? This was wrong." Oscar says, "I only slept with her once. There's nothing between us. I was drunk, and she was wearing your scarf. It reminded me of you, and I ended up in bed with her." Oscar continues, "I love you, Eve." Eve is stunned, but instead of scolding him, she gently explains, "At your age, you don't really understand the difference between love and attraction. What you're feeling is a temporary infatuation, something you're mistaking for love. You still have a lot to learn. With life experience, you'll one day truly understand what real love is." When Eve rejects Oscar's feelings, he doesn't fall apart. Instead, he begins to understand himself better. He realizes that what he felt was more of a fantasy, an ideal he had projected onto Eve. Later, when Eve goes to wash the dishes, Oscar quietly follows her into the kitchen. He just doesn't feel like being away from her. He joins her in doing the dishes. Then, in a quiet moment, Oscar looks at Eve, and Eve looks back at him. They come close. Oscar kisses Eve, but right after the kiss, Eve pulls herself back and walks away. Just then, Oscar's father enters and says, "You're doing a good job," but he has no idea what had just happened in that room a few seconds earlier. That night, while Oscar is lying in bed, he starts thinking about Eve and slowly begins distancing himself from Diane. At first, he saw his relationship with Diane as a mistake, but later, he comes to understand that not everything in life is under our control. Sometimes, even mistakes turn into life lessons. Oscar was emotionally mature for his age, but he didn't have an older brother or mentor, someone he could openly and comfortably share his feelings with, someone who could guide him. Diane, too, had seen Oscar as a grown man, and that pulled him into the whole situation. A few days later, Oscar's boarding school break comes to an end. His father and Eve accompany him to the train station. While his father goes to get the tickets, Oscar apologizes to Eve and admits that he got carried away by emotions. Then he boards the train and sits with his friend. That's when he bumps into the same girl who had shown interest in him at the beginning of the story. "Thanks, Oscar," she says. Then she quotes Voltaire, "If we didn't get something good, at least we'll get something new." Oscar looks at her with a warm smile. He's finally learned how to connect with people his own age. His friend asks him, "So, what about Eve?" Oscar replies, "The obsession I had with Eve, it's not as important as I once thought it was." As the train moves forward, Oscar smiles softly, and with that, the story comes to an end.